Hey everyone, I'm here at Kimball. I'm sitting here in the international headquarters of Planet Whiz Bang, and today in this video, I'm going to tip a bunch of Bettys. These are my Bright Betty Bama lamps. Perhaps you have seen my video about how to make these Bright Betty Bama lamps. These are emergency lighting devices that use a candle wick, 1/4 inch diameter, and liquid paraffin wax. I made the Bright Betty Bama lamp how-to video like 7 months ago, and it got a few hundred views. And then about a week ago, the views started spiking up. And now I have nearly 250,000 views of that video, which is amazing. Somebody flipped a switch somewhere and the views just started spiking up. And so I've gotten a lot of comments, a lot of positive feedback, a lot of questions, some insights, and there were people with concerns. So what I want to do in this video is answer a few questions, and then I'm going to tip the Bettys, and we're going to talk about safety, because the bottom line is that any open flame emergency lighting device, whether it be a candle or any other kind of lamp, does present a possible fire hazard. I don't think it's probable with a Bright Betty, but it's potential. It's there. I'm going to tip 5 Bettys here before this video is over. But first, what you're looking at here is the Mary Corliss Chamber Olive Oil lamp sold by Lehman's Hardware in Kidron, Ohio. They have sold this lamp for many years. It was back in 2011 that I saw this lamp, and that inspired me to come up with my own emergency lighting lamp in a jar, the Bright Betty. The Lehman's lamp uses olive oil. I use liquid paraffin. The Lehman's lamp has a 1/8 inch wick. My lamp has a 1/4 inch wick. The Lehman's lamp is presented as an eco-friendly little lamp that really shines. I'm reading from their copy. It burns olive oil, a renewable, inexpensive fuel, safe since it can't catch on fire if tipped over. The oil will douse the wick. This lamp might be something that you're interested in because you don't want to use liquid paraffin, in which case go check it out and get those. And I'll put a link in the description to the Lehman's webpage where you can find this lamp. So now I'm going to answer a few of the common questions that people are asking before we get to tipping the Bettys. And the first question is, what size is that jar? These are 16-ounce drinking glass jars. Someone said in the comments of my video that there are plastic drinking glass jars. They look just like these. You don't want those. I don't think that would be a good idea at all. Stick with the glass, okay? What is the burn time on that fuel? Okay, I did a test. I put in what I recommend, which is about 1 inch of fuel in the bottom. We're talking liquid paraffin, candle wax, or lamp oil in the bottom of the jar. 1 inch is about 1/2 cup. And I burnt it to see how long it would last. It lasted 16 hours. So I got 16 hours of burn time from 1/2 cup of fuel. And there are 32 1/2 cups in a gallon. And so when I did the math, 32 times 16 came out to 512 hours of light from 1 gallon of liquid paraffin lamp oil or liquid paraffin candle wax. They got all different names. It's pretty much all the same stuff, I believe. How hot does the glass jar get? Well, it doesn't get hot at all. These jars have been burning for a while now, and they are warm. They're warm. I'm not holding them by the handle. If you hold them by the handle, they're practically cold. But if you hold them by the jar itself, they're not hot. They might get hot, but that hasn't been my experience. With this size wick and only one wick in the jar. Someone mentioned that you could put a bunch of flames in there, a bunch of wick holders. Well, yeah, you're on your own with that. With one, like I show in my video, the viral video now, one is enough. It doesn't get too hot at all. Where can you get liquid paraffin lamp oil? You can get it at Walmart. You can get it at Central Tractor. You can get it many different places. I've seen it in grocery stores. okay? It's readily available. If you can't find it in a store, it's available online. You can go to Amazon, but you should be able to find it locally without any problem. How long do the fiberglass candle wicks last? And with this lamp oil, this liquid paraffin lamp oil, I don't see them burn down. Like, for example, when I burned for 16 hours, I didn't have to adjust that flame at all. The wick did not get used up. I think the flame burns off the top of the wick. There might be a little carbon that gets on there. You could trim it, you could just brush it off. But with this fuel, these wicks, they'll last a very long time. Let's put it that way. Can you use other fuels besides the liquid paraffin? I don't recommend any other fuel. You can experiment, of course, with the olive oil if you like. I have experimented with it. I didn't like it. It won't travel up the 1/4-inch fiberglass wick like the liquid paraffin does. You have to get the flame down really low, almost into the oil, for the olive oil to work, for it to make a flame. And I got pretty discouraged with that. Liquid paraffin, it supplies that wick, it supplies that flame pretty nicely, being 2 to 3 inches above the fuel. Last question, is there a smell or an odor with the paraffin lamp oil? My experience is that yes, there is. I haven't used all of the lamp oils, but what I have, which is, it's Holowick, I think, lamp oil, that I've had since 1998. I have several gallons of it that I bought for Y2K, and it keeps, I can tell you that, it keeps very well. But there is an odor, there is a smell that becomes more evident with time, depending on the size of the room you're in. If you're sensitive to that sort of thing, then you need to be aware that there is a smell. And I can tolerate it. I don't notice it for the first half hour to an hour, and then after that it's noticeable, but I can tolerate it because these are emergency lighting devices that only get used for a few hours at night, and so I don't have a problem with it. I can deal with it. All right, so that takes care of the Q&A. And we're going to tip Betty's, but first I want to give you a little tip of a different kind. I want to talk about adjusting the wick for your flame size. And the best way to do that is with needle nose pliers. This flame is looking pretty good, right about there. I can reduce it though by putting these needle nose pliers at the bottom of the copper tube and kind of twisting and pulling it down. You see how that went down? I can get it down even lower. All right, and then if I want to get the flame up, and here I've made it so low that I probably won't be able to grab it. No, I can grab it. That's the beauty of needle nose pliers, right? I can get that way up there. And we're putting carbon up there. You're certainly going to get an odor with that. There's a sweet spot. But the needle nose pliers are what you need if you want to easily adjust that. Otherwise, you're using your fingertips, and that's no fun. I want you to take note that I'm able to lift this handle out, and it's not hot either. It could get hot, I guess, potentially, but this is not hot at all. Okay, it's time to tip the Betty's, and I have a baking pan, I have newspapers, I have 5 Betty's. We're going to tip them all here, but I want to say, first of all, I want to emphasize that any open flame lighting device, like the Bright Betty, is a potential fire hazard. And it should be taken very seriously when you're using these. Only adults should make these and use these, and especially never, 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 never leave these unattended. Let's assume the worst case scenario that the Bright Betty gets accidentally knocked over. All right, you can see that the flame went out. That was Betty number 1. No problem at all. We've got fuel all over here. Let's tip another Betty and see what happens. The Betty gets knocked over accidentally. All right, the flame went out. Let's take Betty number 3. The fuel is accumulating here. Let's knock it over. And the flame went out. Okay, we'll take Betty number 4. Accidentally gets knocked over. and the flame went out. Interesting. So here's our last Betty. Knock it over, the flame went out. Let's try this again. Now I have done this experiment before. This is not my first time. And I can tell you that occasionally the Betty does not go out. Let's tip this one over slower with much less fuel and see what happens. Boy, it went out. All right, let's try this one more time with much less fuel, and we'll light the Betty. Well, there we go. And maybe if I turn this so the handle kind of keeps it from going down. We'll knock it over. All right, there. We got the Betty. Didn't go out. But we're not leaving this unattended. We're getting right to it. We're picking it up, and no harm is done. Now, let's go one step further. We'll leave that going, and we'll throw a flame onto this newspaper with the liquid paraffin and see what happens. It went out. All right, I'm going to do a few because they don't always go out. But this is a good experiment because you're seeing that this fuel does not really ignite. It burns, but it does not ignite. Come on now. We'll set her down real gentle. Ooh, there we go, a little flare. Okay, so that's going to burn. And it's going to burn because, I believe it's because not only do we have fuel, but we have the newspaper. And the newspaper acts as a type of wick, all right? And what I want you to see here is that the flame is not flaring up like if this was gasoline and just going crazy all over the place, you know, a fast fire, I guess is what I'm trying to say. We're getting fire. It's not huge. If you're in this area when it tips over, which you should always be, never leave these lamps unattended, you can deal with this. And I'll show you how you can deal with it very easily and very effectively. We'll let it spread a little bit more. We got smoke coming out here. There, it's spreading over onto there. Now this fire, if you did not know about it, could be very serious in your home, all right? And perhaps this is scaring you. And if that's the case, then this video will have served a good purpose. So it's been at least a minute, probably more, since that flame started. Now I'm going to show you how to put it out. I used my hand. I would probably have used my foot if it was, you know, in my house. I wouldn't just go down there with my hand, but I used my hand just to show you. And I actually thought it would go out with the very first hit because that has been my experience. But I let it go a little bit long, and but it was smothered. We smothered that flame without any problem. Here's another scenario that could happen with your Bright Betty Bama lamp, especially after it's been tipped over and fuel got onto the outside of the copper. This is now burning all of the copper and down below the copper, and the fuel is adding to it. This doesn't happen very often, but it does happen, and I'm glad it's happening here so I can show you. And you can blow these out, or you can just put the lid on and smother them out, just like that. All right? That's all there is to it. But another reason why you shouldn't leave these unattended. They don't just do that. They had to be jiggled and juggled around in order for that scenario to take place. So I grew up in a home where we had 2 wood stoves for heat, one in the living room, one in the kitchen, and when the power went out, out came the kerosene oil lamps. And so I'm comfortable with this sort of thing, open flames for heat and light. But there are a lot of people who aren't. And if you're one of those people, then this is not a lighting device for you. I don't want anyone to make one of these who isn't responsible and careful and aware of the potential dangers. If you want a much potentially safer lighting device for emergency situations, you should get flashlights or rechargeable lanterns. And in my next video, I'm going to discuss that very topic and show you what I have. Because yes, I have the Bright Bettys. They're in the pantry. They're ready to go. We get them and we use them without reservations. We are careful and responsible with them, but I also have electric lighting. Thanks for watching this video. I'll see you in the next one.